Welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content, and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my 12 favorite ways to plan or organize a game night. When I have friends and family coming over, or I've penciled in or circled a date on the calendar, these are my 12 absolutely favorite ways to plan these events. My number 12 favorite way to plan a game night is what I refer to as the player count centered method. This is where I factor in how many people I've invited, how many people have actually confirmed and agreed that they're going to come, and what games accommodate these player ranges. For example, if I'm going to play one-on-one with my wife or another friend, I might want to set aside some two-player only games or some multiplayer games that are very tight and well-designed and scale well to a two-player count. On the opposite end of things, if I have a bigger group of people, perhaps 5 including me, or maybe even 6 or 7, then yes, there are very particular games in my collection that will accommodate that many people and will also do so well. Now, if you're planning an even larger game night than 6 or 7 people, then at that point you might want to consider just sticking to party games that usually accommodate groups of 10, 15, maybe even 20 players, or perhaps you might want to consider breaking your bigger group into 2 smaller groups, or maybe even 3 smaller groups, and then again, factoring in which games in your repertoire accommodate maybe that range of 3 to 4 players best. Number 11 on this list, as far as the way I like to organize my game nights, is what I refer to as the component-centered method. This is where all the games played on that night are going to revolve around one particular component. For example, you might choose dice and choose a whole bunch of dice games, and there can be variety along the spectrum as far as what those dice games consist of, mechanically speaking. However, the main component in that box or in that package is the dice, and there's going to be lots of dice rolling on that game night. Or you can choose cards as the component, and all the games played that evening or that day will revolve around card play and players having a hand of cards. You can also choose miniatures as your component and basically have all the games selected for that night be games that have nice plastic miniatures on the board. And again, you can apply this to a lot of other components such as cubes or meeples or rondelles, wheels, things like that. And again, map out your entire game night in a way that focuses on those particular mechanisms. The number 10 best way to plan a game night is what I refer to as the tried and true favorites night, where all the games are games that are proven games, games that have been played plenty of times. That way players don't have to revise rules and revisit and reteach. Everybody is familiar with what has been played and knows it like the back of their hands. Yes, there's always the novelty and excitement of trying a new game and learning a new game, or perhaps reinforcing a game that you have played but have not played too many times and want to see it in different settings, in different contexts with different people around the table. But there's a value to just sitting down at the table, not having to put too much brain work into things, because at the very least, you know that you've played these games before, and to some extent, it's instinctive as you make your decisions from turn to turn. The number 9 way of planning a game night is what I refer to as the learning-centered method. And this is basically the opposite of what number 10 is. As opposed to having a game night filled with games that everybody's played before, every game on the itinerary in this type of list would be games that are new to all the players involved, including the host. This would make for a very exciting experience, as each game will feel new and fresh, and players will be excited about exploring the possibilities. Now, one caveat I must mention is that because all of the games are going to be new, that means a lot of teaching is going to take place throughout the course of the evening. That way, you should not fill up that itinerary too much, because you're not going to be able to cover all those games. You've got to factor in that every 3 to 4 games you teach is potentially taking up the time of one game. The number 8 way to plan or organize your game nights is what I refer to as the category-centered game night. These are game nights that revolve around large, broad categories, such as cooperative games. Tonight, all we're going to do is we're going to play co-op games, right? Or tonight, all we're going to do is we're going to play dungeon crawl games. Maybe tonight we're only going to play war games or abstract strategy games, or perhaps we're just going to play 18xx games. These large, broad categories of games that do have a lot of games out there that fall underneath their umbrellas, they can be used as a starting point, as a reference point for organizing and planning the games that you want to play on your particular game night. And these established categories will do their job of keeping players in a particular mindset for the duration of the evening. My number 7 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the time-centered method. And basically with this approach, you're factoring in how long are the people you're inviting going to stay over, how long are you planning your game night for, and you're looking at the games you're choosing and you're budgeting your time accordingly. You're factoring in the estimated game lengths that are printed on the back of the boxes. You're factoring in the players that are around. Perhaps some of them are analysis paralysis prone, or perhaps some of them are new to some of the games that you're playing. And again, when you're factoring in the time-centered approach, you've got to factor in some of the things that you factor in with the learning approach, which basically is some of those games might be new to you or to other people playing, and that might add a little bit to the game length. So you're factoring all these things, and according to all that, you're going to have a nice balanced diet of lengthy games, perhaps some medium games, and of course some light, small filler games in between these longer experiences. Ultimately, the games that make the final cut are going to be based on how long they play. You probably don't want to have 2 massively long games on the same game night. At the same time, you probably don't want to have more than 2 or 3 fillers in the same game night. So based on all these factors and criteria, you will determine your final list. My number 6 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the experience-centered method. And with this approach, basically, the MC or the host organizes their list of games based on games that evoke positive, strong, and exciting emotions and feelings and experiences in the players that partake in them. Basically, we're tapping into our vast history of board game experience, and we're pulling out the games that have proven to create strong and exciting memories for all the players involved. We are not thinking about mechanisms. We are not thinking about streamlined rules or well-written rule books. All we are thinking about is, have these games produced fun and exciting moments in the past, and can they repeat that experience? My number 5 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the sequel-centered method. And with this method, we're talking about planning your game nights around games that have produced sequels or trilogies, games that make up a larger series, or perhaps are spiritual successors to other games, games that have a part 2 or a spin-off, these type of games, and just lumping them all up into one game night. For example, something like the North Sea Trilogy or the West Kingdom Trilogy can make up a game night. You can go from one game to another. If you like the Mass Trilogy produced by Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling of Tikal, Cusco, and Mexico, you can play those. Or perhaps the spiritual series of Kyklades, Kemet, and Inish. Or maybe Eric Lang's trilogy of Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and the newly released Ankh. Focusing your game nights around these series, around these trilogies, can really help keep players in a particular mindset as far as theme is concerned, as far as some overlapping aspects of gameplay and mechanisms are concerned, and can really make for quite an exciting experience. And it could also lead to some positive reflection afterward as players reflect on their experiences and determine which games in that game night, within those different series and trilogies, which game actually appeals to them the most, and which games collectively as a group they agree are the best for the night. My number 4 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the designer-centered method. And basically with this approach is as easy as it sounds. All the games on that list for that game night are going to fall under one particular designer. Perhaps you just want to play Uwe Rosenberg games all evening long. Or maybe you just want to play Bruna Cathala games. Or perhaps you're going to say, hey, we're going to play everything that Jamie Stegmaier has ever published. And basically just lumping them up and playing it that way. Also, like the previously mentioned sequel-centered approach, this can lead to some good, healthy discussion at the end of the game night where players see if they can come to a consensus as to which game from the chosen designer is the best in his or her repertoire. Which one is the most innovative? Which one stands out the most from the rest of the group? Again, leading to some fun discussion even after you're done playing your game. My number 3 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the mechanism-centered method. And basically with this approach, it's pretty simple. All the games played that evening or that day are going to fall under one particular mechanism. Now, yes, lots of games do include and encompass multitudes of mechanisms, but we're looking for one overlapping mechanism that ties in all the games that are being played on that day. For example, you can choose to just play deck building games, right? And again, lots of deck builders have other peripheral mechanisms or core mechanisms involved, but you want to have the deck building mechanism featured in the games that are being played that day. You can choose worker placement. Perhaps you want to choose area majority or area control. You might want to choose dice rolling or auction bidding or route network building. Again, all of these mechanisms are available. They're at your disposal, and you can choose to map your game night around them. And as with some of the previously mentioned methods on this list, this can lead to lots of good, positive discussion at the end of the game night as you guys all determine and discuss which of these games is the best within its particular mechanism. My number 2 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the theme-centered method. And this one was very close to being number 1 because I find that centering or focusing your games around one particular theme enhances and enriches the experience vastly. The possibilities for the game night are infinite because players are all able to remain in one particular mindset, in one particular zone throughout the rest of the night. And whether you pick fantasy or science fiction or space exploration or Renaissance Europe or ancient Rome or whatever theme you pick, it just helps tie in all the experiences from one game to another. While the games can differ radically, mechanically speaking, there's going to be something from previous experiences or earlier experiences in the game night that players can tap into later on in the game night when they're playing a new game. There's going to be memories that are resurfaced and moments that are kind of re-experienced and relived or told differently when we play another game later on the same game night with a similar theme or with the same theme as the games from previously in the game night. Obviously, you want to choose themes that players can get excited about. You want to choose themes that are broad in their scope. You want to choose themes that you have a good, sizable representation of those themes within your board game collection. And not only will this lead to some good, healthy, positive discussion at the end of game night, but very likely it will lead to some good discussion throughout the game night as players are immersed in their characters, immersed in their universes, and really getting into that role-playing, storytelling kind of zone as they continue to play all these games that all fall within the same theme. And finally, my number 1 way of organizing your game night is what I refer to as the audience-centered method. And basically, this had to be number 1, guys. Straightforward. This is just tailoring the games you choose on your list according to the people that you're going to be gaming with that day. And it's so obvious. And again, you probably want to do that with all your game nights. And a lot of these principles here in these top 12 lists can be mixed and matched, right? You can have a epic thematic game night that also matches games that are strong and rich in experience. You can have perhaps some overlap between categories and mechanisms and what have you. But the point is that this is the most important principle of all. You want the people around your table to be happy. So you want to play games that they like, or if you're trying new games, you want to play games that you think they would like because you've gamed and played with them long enough that you know a little bit about their tastes and their preferences. So don't subject them to torture because you want to play a game, but you know that they might despise those type of games. It's not worth it. The best possible outcome for any game night is that everybody goes home happy, having had a really good time and having created some really good memories. And that's what it's all about. That's what our hobby is all about. It's about having fun in the middle of this world that creates so much stressful, sometimes negative emotions. It's taking the space to disconnect from some of those experiences and just immersing yourself in a positive experience, surrounding yourself with positive company and having a really good time together. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.